Hi everyone, Jennifer Penton here. As you can see, I have a Starbucks coffee logo, and I'm going to teach you how to do product displacement so that you can change it to look different for a prop in a movie or a TV show where maybe they don't want you to actually have the real logo. So let's take a look. So here is another version of that, which I changed to Star Clucks Coffee, and I put a picture of a chicken in there. And then I changed it even further and made it Star Clucks Chicken with two little chickens here. Actually, I'd probably want to turn this one around and face the other chicken. And then the word chicken. As you can see, this is very similar to this original logo based upon the style that the other logo that was used to create this Starbucks coffee logo. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing is we want a high resolution image. So I'm going to put my thumb on command and tab over to the internet. And as you can see, I did a search for Starbucks logo. So I'd like you to do the same. Get a Starbucks logo. And I found a really good one on logosworld.net. As you can see, this is an image search. And the nice thing about this one is it's on a transparent background. And it's pretty large. It's 3,840 pixels by 2,160 pixels. Okay, so I control on a Mac or right click on a PC, copy image, and then I'll go to Photoshop and I will make a new. I'll go File, New, and remember, Photoshop remembered that size in the clipboard, and this is all good. Make sure that your color profile is a basic color profile that is used in Photoshop. You can just go with this one, RGB, right here. Click on Create. And now Edit, Paste, or Command V, as you can see. And now we have our Starbucks logo. Now, one thing we want to make sure is that this can be printed, okay? So if we're definitely going to be printing this for a prop in film or television, we want to make sure that we work with the image size. So I'm going to go to Image, Image Size. And as you may recall, we can't really res anything up, right? But we have 3,840 pixels by 2,160 pixels to work with. Well, how would that print? Now, as you can see, this is saying 53 inches. This would print really terribly at a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. So just remember 3840 pixels. And I'm going to change this to pixels. Okay. And we're going to change this to 300 pixels per inch because that's for print. And I believe that was 3840. Okay. And now we're going to click on OK. And if we go back into image, image size, you'll see that if we change these pixels now to inches, we can print something that is about 12 inches wide by 7 inches high at 300 pixels per inch, and it will look wonderful. Okay, so that's how you want to do that with these kinds of images. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And now, what do we need to do to be able to first change the word Starbucks and make sure that we have the right font? So I did a little research, and that's what you'll always want to do if you want to keep a similar font. And I found that the font that we're going to need is this one, Freight Sans Pro. So you can go ahead and look it up. Go on to fontsgeek.com/fonts Freight Sans Pro, and you're going to grab this one. Okay, so I went ahead and I downloaded it. And it does, once you download it, it's going to appear down here at the bottom if you're on a Mac. On a PC, it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, and then what you're going to want to do is if it ends up in your downloads, so mine did, if I go to downloads, you'll see that it's right here, and it's actually zipped. So you double click on it to unzip it, and then you'll find that everything is in there. So if I go double click, okay, you'll see here it is, Freight Sans Bold SC.otf. So that's the one you're going to want to use, okay? And I got that from fontsgeek.com. Now, on a Mac, what you're going to want to do at that point is you're going to want to go to your library. So I go to my Macintosh HD library and then fonts. And then I just drag Freight Sans Bold SC.OTF just right into here. So click and, click and drag it over. And as you can see, I've already done that. So I have it here, right here. Okay, so it's in my library. Once I've put it into the fonts folder within my library, Photoshop will immediately recognize it. I don't have to quit Photoshop and then go back in. I'm all set. Okay, now I have my logo and I have my font. Okay, and by the way, this T is for text, and we're going to learn more and more about how to make text in Photoshop. It's really fun, and there are a lot of things you can do with it. But we're just getting started, doing something pretty advanced, which is really fun. And don't let it, don't think that it's going to be a problem. It's going to be, pretty fun, and just take your time with it, and you should end up having a good time. Okay, so I think at this point, we can go ahead and I'm going to close this for now so that I won't overheat, so that my computer won't overheat. Chrome, by the way, really can make your computer overheat. Okay, so now I've got my Starbucks logo. And the first thing I'm going to do is, now some of this is going to be a little time consuming, so I'm going to sort of skip back and forth to show you how I did this. Now, one thing I really want to make sure I do is I want to save this, because you don't want to work for hours and hours on something and then forget to save it and have your computer crash and it, to disappear. That would be really bad. So we'll go ahead and save as onto my computer. And I'll go ahead and put it into my Photoshop. Let's see, into my OneDrive. And let me put it in the right place here. I'll go ahead and go to OneDrive. And let's see. Yeah, this is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and call it logo, Starbucks, maybe like that, and then put your name before it. So Penton, my last name, and that's good. And then I'll go ahead and save, maximize compatibility always, and here we are. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, as I said, is I am going to make a circle to fit this text around. Okay, now if you want to just type text, you can. So just to show you, if I click on the T here and then I just click anywhere onto my Photoshop document, you'll notice that text appears right away, and it says lorem ipsum and a bunch of other things because that's the default. And as you can see, it's also highlighted because from a text background, if you understand how typesetting is done, people like to be able to see an example of work. And so they just use this Latin to give you an example. So immediately, like let's say I wanted to type Starbucks, and as you can see, this is white. So I'm going to change this font. You'll see I have in my options bar, I'm in Freight Sans Bold, and white is the color of my text. So I'm going to change it right here by clicking on the white, and I'll choose the green just so you can see how this works. Boop. Click on OK. And now you can see an S and a T here. Okay. So Starbucks. Let's actually do this. Okay. So you can see that. Now, that's how to type text. Okay. And if I click over here now, away from my text, now I can move my text. I can actually move it if I'm in my text tool, but it's a little more tricky. It's a little trickier that way. So here you can see I've typed Starbucks. Well, the problem is that I want to type it around a circle, okay? So we can just delete this layer. And keep in mind, this layer has a T here. And what that means is that this layer is actually vector, okay? It's a text layer. And the good thing about text layers being vector is that they can be any size. You can size them up or down. you can res them up and they will stay a high resolution because they're not based on pixels. More about that later, but just know that this your text is always going to be vector as opposed to pixel based, but it's still going to be in there. You're still going to be able to work with it very well. So I'm going to throw this away by dragging it into the trash. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to use this tool. This is my custom shape tool. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to grab the ellipse tool. Okay, the ellipse tool can make shapes, but so I could make a circle, but what I want is a path. So I'm going to use my ellipse tool, which is within the custom shape tool, ellipse, grab the circle, and choose up here. Very important, don't choose shape, choose path, okay? Then what I'm going to do is I am going to go right into the middle, and I'm going to hold down Shift and Option, and I'm going to draw a circle. I'm just going to click and drag, and a circle will start to form. And what I want to do is I want to align this circle right with the bottom of the word Starbucks. See that? Now let's say I accidentally make it a little bit too big. Okay, so I'm going to let go. There it is. And be careful and watch this right now. It is now a path. Remember how I told it to be a path, not a shape? A path is something you can align words onto. And you can see it's called a work path, which is fine. I'm going to click on this work path and name it. So we can call this Starbucks. And just so you understand, I'm going to call it Starbucks path. Okay? So there you go. Now, let's say I want it to be smaller because I want it to be right along the line, this sort of curved line, that an imaginary curved line that will allow me to use to make a different word like Barstucks or Starclucks or something that's different than Starbucks, okay? So what I'm going to do is once I have my path, I can actually just transform it, as you can see. See that? But if I hold down Option, let me just Command Z that. Okay. So I undid that. I'm going to hold down Option, and I'm going to put my cursor right here in the corner, vertex. It's called a vertex. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. And if I hold Shift as well, it's going to stay a nice circle. Now let's say, for whatever reason, I want to make it not exactly as round, or maybe I want to bring these edges in. Okay, so if I don't hold down Shift, look what happens. I can make it a little bit narrower, okay? But if I wanted to, and let's just escape from there and go back to how we were, and I can go back in history too. Let's say, so I just went back in history and undid what I had done. Let's say I want to move this path. To move a path, you have to use this tool here, okay? The path selection tool, and that allows me to move it, okay? So let's say that I want to just move it down a little bit, or maybe I want it up here. I move it. Make sure you're using this path selection tool, not the direct selection tool. That's a good one too, but it does different things. So now I can go ahead and I can hold down Option, and that can make it skinnier and fatter on both sides. See how that's working? That's pretty nice. So it looked like it needed to be a little bit skinnier. And now if I bring it down using this tool, make sure I move it down. Oops. Okay, it doesn't want to. Make sure you've selected it. Okay. There we go. Sometimes it can be a little finicky, so just you have to work with it a little bit. If you hold down Control, okay, on a PC, I believe it's a PC or a Mac, you can, I'm using a Mac right now. If you hold down Control as you're moving things, you can make them move very, very, like pixel by pixel, in very small increments. So there you go. There we go. And I'm just going to use my arrow tool to just under my Shift on my keyboard. My up and down arrows can allow me to move this as well. And now it's pretty well aligned with the B, but it seems that I need to just make it a little narrower again. And if it's not cooperating, there we go. You just have to kind of work with it a little bit. So this is pretty good. All right, so I've made it right about to here. Okay, there we go. And I'm fine with it now. It's exactly along the bottom edge of the word Starbucks. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my typing tool, and once I move this arrow over to here, watch what happens. It becomes a typing tool with a little curve through it when I come close to a path. Or if I go inside, it has a circle around it, which means when I type within the path, I can type in a circle. So it becomes bound by the outer edge of whatever the path is, if it's a closed path. But if I go right over to here, I can type along the outer edge or inner edge of the path, depending on what I need to do. And as you may know already, you also are going to have to do the inner edge of the path of a different path. Okay, so if I click right here, using Freight Sans Bold SC, as you can see up here at the top, right? I'm going to just click here, okay? Click. Oop. And make sure that when you're doing this, that you're right on that edge. So let me do this again. By the way, I want to make sure that this is white. So I'm going to click up here and type FFFFFF. So my hexadecimal code is white, pure white here. All right, let's do this again. And I'm going to click right on there. And you'll notice it has a highlighted lorem ipsum, the whole thing. And do not click out of there. Just leave it as it is and now start typing. So I'm going to type, maybe I'm going to type bar stucks. Let's do that. BARSTUCKS. And by the way, just so you are aware, what I've done to make it all caps already is I've also made sure that this is all caps here in my character panel and bold. Now, if you don't see this little A with a line next to it, your character panel, you can go here to Window and click here and the character panel will open up for you. Okay, so you really want to be able to control all of your text, whatever that text is, with this panel. It tells you, it allows you to control what kind of font it is, how big it is. You'll notice for me, it's at 88 points. And then how separated or close the letters are to each other. Lots of good things, okay? So now I've typed bar stucks, but you can't see it that well, okay? Because we have this we have the word Starbucks behind there. So what I'm going to do to make this work more easily for us, and you can see that it does say bar stucks, is let's just turn that off for a minute. And let's put a green layer between these layers so that we can cover up Starbucks here. So the best way to do this is, once again, I am going to create a layer here. So what I'm going to do is I could use my elliptical marquee tool. I could even use the shape tool, but the thing about shapes is they are vectors. So they're harder to work with than just using the elliptical marquee tool. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm on the Starbucks layer. I already have bar stucks typed in. I have it at the right font, which was Freight Sans Bold. And I made sure that it was all caps and bold and white. Okay, I'm going to close the character panel for a moment. And now in layer 1, okay, I'm actually going to make a new layer. So I'm going to click right here, plus, and I have this blank layer. And what I want to do is I want to make another green circle here that has nothing in it, okay? So I'm going to put my cursor right in the center again. I'm using the elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to hold down Option and Shift so that I draw a circle selection from the center, okay? So I go ahead and I try to get it as close to that size as possible, okay? So if it's not completely centered, that's fine. I can always transform this selection, okay? And I'm going to let go of my cursor and then let go of Shift and Option. Now, while I'm still in this selection tool, and that's very important, I'm going to move this up And as you can see, it's pretty much nicely in there. I'm going to use my little arrows just under my shift key on my keyboard to bring that in a little bit. And you can see I have a really good selection. That's actually perfect. It's a little bit inside, but that's okay because it's going to be the exact same color. If I wanted to transform it, okay, you can transform a selection, but you do not hit Command T. You go select, select, okay, and then you're going to go transform selection. And as far as I know, there's no keyboard shortcut for it by default. You could probably create one. But now, as you can see, look at this. I can transform the selection, okay, if I want. Let me escape there. And once again, just to show you again, select, transform selection. So let's take a look here. If I hold down Option, it transforms it, makes it smaller without me needing to hold down Shift. If I want to move it, like if I want to drag the edge this side like that, okay, I'm going to hold down Option. Let's see, let me hold down Shift. So Shift and Option together when I'm transforming the selection can make it skinnier or fatter. Okay. So just play around with Shift and Option. They're a little bit confusing because Photoshop has changed some of the ways that they work, but you can transform your selection any which way you need to make it absolutely perfect once you've created it by going Select, Transform Selection. Okay, so I'm in the middle of the transform, so it's grayed out. All right, so I'm going to just escape because this is a really good selection. And now what I'm going to do is on this empty layer 2, I'm going to fill it with green. And remember, I can just use the color picker and then drag it right in here and I'll get green. The exact Starbucks is green, which is 007751 in the hexadecimal code. Click on OK, and now this is green. Now, if for some reason your color picker is glitched, and I know some people have had that problem, just go to Color, okay? So you can go to Window, Color, make sure that's open, and then you can get to it that way, okay? So like, for example, you can use this tool and choose the color there, and that should be able to get you the same results if your color picker is not working. All right, and now I'm just going to fill. Now I can go Edit, Fill, okay, with foreground color, or I can hit Command Delete. There are a lot of different ways I can fill. So now I've filled this. This layer 2 is nicely filled, but the problem is I want to cut a hole through it, right? I want it to, be a circle, not be like a, like a donut, not a full circle. So I need to cut a hole in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower its opacity right here. So I bring that down, and now I can see what's underneath. So I need to make another circle right here. And once again, you more advanced users, some people do things all kinds of different ways. This is just the way I do it. I know there are many different ways to do things. This is the way I'm most comfortable with. But I'm going to get the marquee tool again, go right as close as I can to the center. And by the way, I could use these rulers as well. Now, you may not see your rulers. If you don't, I want you to go to right here to View Rulers and turn them on. Okay, so you might have this. Go to View Rulers, and that will allow you to drag guides down, and they will snap to the center. Okay, by default they do. They should. Okay, now that way, now I know exactly that I'm in the center when I'm right here. That can be very helpful when I'm doing this kind of a project. Once again, I'm going to hold down Option and Shift to make a perfectly round circle, and this is really helpful, as you can see. So I'm just going to go right into that area. I'm going a little bit above so I don't make anything stick out, and I lift my cursor first and then let go of Shift and Option. And now all I have to do is hit Delete, and that will knock out that center of the circle. Now I can hit Command D, and now I have this layer 2, which I can call green background. Okay. And now I'll make that opacity 100%. I'm covering up the word Starbucks. Turn on bar stux. And there it is. Pretty cool. Now, let's turn off these guides. I can hit Command H to turn them off. Be careful when you're turning off guides. Don't close Photoshop when you hit Command H. The alternative way to turn off guides is to go to View, and then I think you can go to Show Guides and turn them off that way. There's a few other things. As you can see, extras, you can turn them off that way. So be careful of Command H. Normally it can work pretty well, but if not, you can always use View. Okay, so I have bar sticks here, but the problem is it's not aligned the way it should be, right? It's too far back. I mean, it's too tilted to the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my paths, and I'm going to go to Starbucks path, and I want to select it, highlight it. And once I do that, I know it can be very hard to see, especially for some of you who don't have the best eyes. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this path selection tool again. And I'm going to click right here. And what I can do is I can actually twist this around. So there are a few things that are really helpful to see right now. If I click here, let's just see if it's going to let me. No, it's not. Okay, I'm going to click on this tool. I'm going to click right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the opacity. So I'm going to go back over here to my layers panel. And I'm going to lower the opacity of the green background so I can see how this bar stux is in relation to Starbucks. So the first thing I notice is that I definitely need to twist it. And I'm also going to bring back the guides, but I'm going to bring them to I'm going to go to about here because I want to align the S and the B properly, okay? And they're too far apart as well. And I can always move my guides around, by the way. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is making sure I have the path selected. I'm going to rotate it, and that should work. Oh, actually, it's not working. Okay, let me grab it here. Okay, and this is the path on which I drew this. Let's see here. Okay, if there are different ways you can do things, like as I've said, let's make sure we're on the actual right layer. I think that was the problem. Yeah, there you go. So make sure, that was my problem. Make sure you're on the right layer, the text layer. And I'm going to go to paths. And I'm going to go to bar stux type path, which is what was created when I did this. And now you'll see all kinds of cool things start to appear here. And let me just see something. If I click, yeah, that's not going to do it. Let's see. Let's just click right there. There we go. Okay, so when I click on that, it turns pink. And what you'll see is there's a little X that allows me to move this back and forth. Okay, so I can click here and then move it, and then it can be what I want it to be. Now, you'll notice that these letters are too far from each other, so I want to bring them in closer. But let's look at this again and be very cognizant of this. Once I clicked on the right layer, which was the bar stux layer, I saw the bar stux type path, which I want to make sure is highlighted. When I use this tool, okay, the path selection tool, not direct selection tool, but the path selection tool, when I click over here, now I can start to adjust things in the way that the text is on the path. Now, once again, these letters are too far apart, so I'm going to go into my character panel, and you'll notice that their distance from each other is 100. So right off the bat, I can make this, let's bring it down to maybe 20, hit return, and you'll see that now the letters are a lot closer together, but they're still pretty far away. So maybe I can make it -10. Let's take a look. Not bad. Okay, and by the way, I can do every single letter. I can really position them perfectly if I want. For example, let's say I want the U to be closer to the T. I can go here into my text tool. I can click right on that T, and then I can make this one like maybe a -50 just to show you. So I can do it character by character, -50 right there. Boom. And you see the U moves closer to the T slightly. So You can do all kinds of really great things using this character panel. So play around with all of these different little fields, and Photoshop will show you exactly what each one does. Okay, kerning is the distance between characters. And then here, this is the tracking for all the characters, how far apart they are. Just really play with this and get a feel for how it works. Try all these different little sections here, these little menus, and you'll really start to understand how all of this works. So as you can see, I brought everything a little bit closer together. It's at -10, which I think is fine. But between the U and the T, it's at -50 here. But if I click over here, it's once again at -10. And this is fine. But now, once again, it's crooked again. So I go back to this tool, the path selection tool, and I click here. Let's click again. And I'm just going to move that little X. And you can see how the guide is very helpful, because now I can decide, okay, exactly where do I want this to be? And remember, if I hold down Control on a Mac or a PC, I can keep it from from moving too much. And there you go. So now bar stux is nicely aligned. Okay, very, very useful tool. So now if I turn off my guides again and I go back to my layers and I make my green background 100%, there you go. That's pretty nice. Okay, looks very professional. Okay, because I have the right font, I understand how to make text, create text on paths. Now, well, let's say there are a few things I could do. If I wanted to see coffee behind it, right? Well, coffee's already there, right? And I have these stars here, right? So one thing I could do, and there are a lot of things you can do, right? Is I could just drag this into here to copy it, make a new layer, and turn off the green background, just as I experiment in case I want this back. And what I can do is I can use this use the elliptical marquee, but go to the rectangular marquee. I've turned off this green background. I have the green background copy. Bring the opacity down so I can see what's underneath. And I'm going to cut this circle in half. So I'm just going to grab, I'm going to click and drag over here, and right under the B and the S, I just drag a big rectangle and I hit delete. And now you notice this is just an arch. I cut the circle in half. I hit Command D, okay, and it's that easy. Now I take this layer, this one's turned off, and I bring the opacity up to 100%, and now it says Bar Stux Coffee. I didn't even need to do anything with the letters for coffee. However, what if I wanted it to say something else, like, as you remember from when I changed this, it said Star Clucks Chicken, right? So what would I do? Well, I would go ahead and I would want to keep this other green background and maybe even change its color, which is what I did for the chicken one, and go ahead with this one. Maybe bring its opacity down so I can see the word coffee underneath. And in this case, I'm going to do the same thing I did with paths, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. So please pay attention, okay? With my paths tool set up, I'm going to go back into here to the ellipse tool, make sure it's set for path, not shape, and I'm going to make another path. Let's turn on my guides again and go with right here in the middle, okay? And I can actually, if I wanted to, I can go to the move tool and just get rid of this one that's not perfectly centered by dragging it into the ruler, and it'll just go away so it doesn't distract me. Go back to this go back to this ellipse tool, click and drag it like that. And I'm clicking and dragging, but I'm holding down Option, so it's from the center, and Shift, so it's from the center, and a circle. And I want this to go right on the bottom of the word coffee. So see that? So I'm going to make it align as well as I can. And this way I don't have to transform it, because going right from the center is pretty perfect. I let go and there it is. Okay, no transforming of my path necessary. Now I could transform it if I wanted to by just dragging these things here, but I don't need to. All right, I have this work path. Always name your work paths. I repeat, always name your work paths, because if you don't name them, if you do another path, they will disappear, and you might want to have that path saved for many reasons. For, maybe you want to use the exact same path again. So I'm going to call this, let's call this coffee path, and we can always type something else, and I probably will. Okay, and once again, I use my text tool. Make sure it's white. Make sure I'm using Freight Sans Bold SC. And 88 point is good for this assignment. And once again, once it's in here, you see a circle around it. But once it's over here, you see that path, right? I'm going to click again. Okay, it's on the outside. I want it on the inside, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. Okay, so why don't I type, instead of coffee, let's type spices, okay? Just so you can see how it works with something else. And once again, it's in bold and all caps, okay? So here I go, spices, okay? And you can see it's along the outside of the path. You can barely see it because it's white on white. And now I have a layer 2 type path, okay? So now you'll notice I now have a layer 2, and we're going to put this up above here, and it says spices. I want to be on spices layer, and now you'll notice I have a spices type path, which we also want to make sure is highlighted. I'm on the spices layer, and here's the trick to making it go on the inside. Please pay attention. I go here to the path selection tool. I click over here, and it will look like this. You see this little text tool with a little arrow going to the right. I'm going to click, and I'm going to move it so that it's inside the arrow. There you go. Just move it inside the circle, and it will go inside the arrow. I mean, it will go inside, and it will look nice. Now, when I click here, once again, I have this little, now you can see there's a little problem here. Let's make sure it goes in there. It can be a little tricky, so just give yourself some, space to deal with it. Now, in this case, it doesn't want to move as easily, but I can easily fix that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these letters because they're too close. So instead of -10, let's go maybe 30. Hit return. Still too close. Let's go 100. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so now what I can do is, there are a few things I can do, like with everything, but if I click on here, I can, let's see, it doesn't want to work. Okay, oh yeah, I think that actually does work. Okay, I hit Command T, and you'll notice it doesn't look like it's moving, but once I hit return, it does move, okay? And once again, what I can do is I can bring a guide down here, which is completely horizontal, and then I can play around with this. So Command T again on the path, like if I can't use that little X, and just slightly move it, hit return, and now everything's looking nicely aligned. And once again, go back here, turn on my green background, make it 100%. Bar Stuck's Spices. Isn't that nice? Now, I think we'll stop this video at this point because it's getting very long. I will show you how to do all the other things on the next video. So this is a great way to get started. Remember, you're using this shape tool, ellipse tool, and you're making sure that it's set up as path, okay? Follow all of my steps 100% and you will do just fine. And it may be a little confusing at first, but you should be able to handle this. Okay, enjoy, and I will see you in the next video.